From a dark age, the light of prophecy shines forth. From deep in the bowels of a divided Europe emerge stark warnings to mankind that resonate within us even now. Prophecies that are seemingly impossible, and yet are there for all to see. The outbreak of a worldwide pandemic, the death of Queen Elizabeth, the invasion of Ukraine, global warming, terror attacks, world war, and the end of times. These, and more, were foreseen by a 16th century physician. Indeed, we are told that a coming war, starting in Europe, will engulf the globe and cause catastrophic numbers of deaths. The materialistic Christian West will do battle with the united forces of the East and the Muslim world, following a Russian invasion of Europe. Ballistic rockets will rain down upon us all. Are we ready for the truth? This is the tale of that man and his unique insight into the global events set in motion by mankind. This is the story of the end of the world and the man we know as Nostradamus. This is the story of how he became infamous. Nostradamus was a French astrologer and physician whose prophecies earned him fame and a loyal following during his lifetime. In the centuries since his death, people have credited him with accurately predicting pivotal events in history. From the French Revolution to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. Some have even said the 2020 coronavirus pandemic was predicted by him. His book, The Prophecies, was published in 1555 and has since earned him worldwide fame. According to Nostradamus, the world is slated to end in the year 3797. He was born in 1503 in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, France. He is known as Nostradamus, the apothecary and seer, who published his collections of prophecies. From the rise of Adolf Hitler to the nuclear destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, from the terrorist attacks of 2001 to the end of the world, Nostradamus has always been there. But all of these prophecies were discovered after he died, after he had written them down, and after the events. Now, though, his quatrains are predicting our own immediate future, the fall of technology and the almost total destruction of mankind as we know it, the rise of a huge Islamic army led by the Antichrist that will begin a third world war, the invasion of the West by the Chinese hordes. All of these and more are being discovered in the writings of a man from 16th century France. Now we are seeing the interpretation of his predictions before the events. Now we may have a new future revealed to us. The question is it true? Are we about to witness the most cataclysmic era in mankind's history? The world of Nostradamus was a world of secrecy. He spent years building around himself an aura of mystery. He claimed that the danger of his own time required that his words were written down in enigmatic sentences that he called cloudy obscurity. In 1558, a text stated about Nostradamus that he was, quote, a certain brainless and lunatic idiot who is shouting nonsense and publishing his prognostications and fantasies on the streets, end quote. The astrologer Laurent Vidal wrote in his declaration of the abuses, ignorances, and seditions of Mikhail Nostradamus that, quote, if I wanted to recite all the ignorances, errors, and idiocies that you have been putting in your works for the last 4 or 5 years, it would need a pretty big book, end quote. Ever since the publication of his first book in 1555, it has almost never been out of print. It is said he predicted worldwide events, births, catastrophes, and even world wars. Most academics say that any associations with real events and the prophecies of this 16th century man are purely coincidental, mistranslations, or are so thin that it takes nothing to make them snap. But is this the truth? As we are now well into the 21st century, could there be prophecies that have new meaning? Could there be new science to explain just how Nostradamus predicted the future? Indeed, there are predictions that he made and which are fast approaching. Better now to know the truth then. We will begin by taking a look at his life. Mikhail de Nostradamus was one of at least 9 children of the notary Jean de Nostradamus and Renier, the granddaughter of a physician in Saint-Remy. His father's family had been Jewish, but had converted to Catholicism and taken the surname Nostradamus, meaning Our Lady. There is very little known about the childhood of Nostradamus. We know that at the age of 15, he entered the University of Avignon, stayed there for 1 year, and then was forced to leave when the plague broke out and the university closed its doors. According to the accounts of Nostradamus, he then proceeded to travel the countryside for 8 years as he researched herbal remedies. He then entered the University of Montpellier to study medicine. He was then expelled for practicing apothecary and slandering other doctors. The actual document still exists. And so, even though his publishers would call him Doctor, the truth is, he never made it. He continued life as an apothecary and became widely known for his invention, the rose pill, which apparently protected against the plague. Nostradamus traveled throughout France and Italy, treating victims of the plague. There was no known remedy at the time. Most doctors relied on potions made of mercury, the practice of bloodletting, and dressing patients in garlic-soaked robes. Nostradamus developed some very progressive methods for dealing with the plague. He didn't bleed his patients. Instead, practicing effective hygiene and encouraging the removal of the infected corpses from city streets. He became known for creating a rose pill, an herbal lozenge made of rose hips, which is rich in vitamin C and which provided some relief for patients with mild cases of the plague. His cure rate was impressive, though much can be attributed to keeping his patients clean, administering low-fat diets, and providing plenty of fresh air. In time, Nostradamus found himself somewhat of a local celebrity for his treatments and received financial support from many of the citizens of Provence. In 1531, he was invited to work with a leading scholar of the time, Jules Césaire Scaliger, in Agen, in southwestern France. There he married, and in the next few years had 2 children. In 1534, his wife and children died, presumably of the plague, where he was traveling on a medical mission to Italy. Not being able to save his wife and children caused him to fall out of favor in the community and with his patron, Scaliger. In 1545, he returned to France and became the assistant of a famous physician in his fight against the plague in Marseille. He then moved on to his hometown and region to do the same. In 1547, he finally settled down in Salon de Provence, married a rich widow named Anne Ponsarde, and had 3 sons and 3 daughters. After a visit to Italy, Nostradamus decided to move away from medicine and steered himself towards the occult world. He wrote an almanac in 1550, and this was the first time his name becomes Nostradamus and not Nostradam. It was a success, and so he decided to continue. In total, he wrote over 6,000 prophecies. Soon, he was coming to the attention of the nobility, who began ordering their horoscopes and asking for psychic advice. He then proceeded to do something very strange. He would write a book containing 1,000 quatrains of undated prophecies, These are the prophecies he is now known for worldwide, and it is because these are undated that they remain open to interpretation in every generation. He believed what he was doing was against the religious rules of the day, and so he obscured what he was doing. He mixed the languages, using Greek, Latin, Italian, and Provençal, and used word games. In truth, he would have had to have practiced magic to upset the Inquisition. Prophecy and astrology was permitted. His book, The Prophecies, had a mixed reception. Some believed he was a servant of Satan. Others believed him to be insane, but others thought him enlightened. Many of these were from elite families, such as the Medicis. Catherine de' Medici summoned him to Paris after she read about his omen of threats to the royal families. She had him draw up horoscopes for her family. She made him counselor and physician to her son, who would be Charles IX of France. Nostradamus suffered from gout, a type of arthritis, and in 1566, it was making movement problematic. By June of that year, he was drawing up his will. By July 1st, he told his secretary, quote, "You will not find me alive at sunrise." The following morning, he was found dead. It seemed this was one prophecy he definitely got right. But the man left behind a vast volume of work, and it is to the prophecies that we now must turn. The French philosopher wrote 6,338 prophecies, suggesting when, where, and how our world will dramatically end. Many of Nostradamus's predictions, such as the rise to power of Adolf Hitler, World War II, the September 11th terrorist attack, the French Revolution, and the development of the atomic bomb, have been interpreted as being accurate. Nostradamus also appeared to have predicted the start of the coronavirus pandemic of 2020, according to believers. According to Yearly Horoscope, more than 70% of his prophecies have been fulfilled so far. But his prophecies have continued to amaze those who follow his work. Among his first predictions were events that occurred when he was still alive. He is said to have predicted that a monk he met on his travels would be the future pope. He was correct, as the monk eventually became Pope Sixtus V in 1585. Nostradamus is also alleged to have predicted the death of King Henri II of France, saying in one of his quatrains, quote, The young lion will overcome the older one on the field of combat in a single battle. He will pierce his eyes through a golden cage, 2 wounds made one. Then he dies a cruel death." End quote. King Henri II ultimately died during a ceremonial jousting match when he was stabbed through his mask in the face by his opponent, who was 6 years younger than him. Hence the reference to the young lion in Nostradamus' quatrain. Beforehand, Nostradamus tried to warn the king not to take part in any ceremonial jousting, but to no avail. Nostradamus' most significant predictions, however, supposedly took place or will take place centuries after the prophet's passing. Experts suggest that he predicted the French Revolution of 1789. They attribute this prediction to one of his quatrains, which reads, quote, "From the enslaved populace, songs, chants, and demands while princes and lords are held captive in prisons. These will be in the future by headless idiots be received as divine prayers." End quote. The French Revolution began with the storming of the Bastille prison. The masses, which Nostradamus had referred to as, quote, "the enslaved populace," end quote, rose to overthrow the French monarchy and establish the French Republic. During the years of upheaval that followed, many Frenchmen, Nostradamus' supposed, quote, "headless idiots," end quote, were executed by being decapitated via the guillotine. Another event that the French seer may have predicted was the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte, also referred to by Nostradamus experts as the first Antichrist. In one of his quatrains, Nostradamus used the words "Pau, ne, Laurent," which students of the prophet suggest as an anagram for Napoleon Roy, or Napoleon, the king or Roy of France. Napoleon would, of course, go on to conquer nearly all of Europe before his ultimate defeat and death in exile. Nostradamus is also thought to have predicted the rise of the second Antichrist, Adolf Hitler. The prophet wrote, quote, "From the depths of Western Europe, a young child will be born to poor people. He who by his tongue will seduce a great troop. His fame will increase towards the realms of the East." End quote. Hitler was born in Austria, which could be argued as part of, quote, "the depths of Western Europe," end quote. He was able to persuade his supporters, the Great Troop, to follow him in his campaigns of conquest and genocide, much of which occurred in Eastern Europe, quote, the realms of the East, end quote. Nostradamus also mentioned the word Hister in another one of his quatrains, which of course is similar to Hitler, though it may also refer to the ancient name of the Danube River near to where Hitler was born.
And Hitler had another victory. He had hijacked 2 more countries. The world wondered and sometimes marveled at this man's efficiency.
Some believe that the French prophet even predicted the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. He wrote, quote, "Earth-shaking fire from the center of the earth will cause tremors around the new city. 2 high rocks will war for a long time, and then Arethusa will redden a new river," end quote. Proponents of Nostradamus' prophecies suggest that the new city he refers to is New York City, and that the 2 high rocks in the center of the earth refer to the 2 towers that constituted the World Trade Center. The other most essential predictions of Nostradamus are arguably the ones that have not yet come to pass. Among these prophecies is the emergence of a 3rd Antichrist, a 3rd World War, and the exact year the world will come to an end. Here's what Nostradamus believers have interpreted from the entries in his book concerning recent times. Nostradamus may have predicted the death of North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. In the 14th quatrain of Centuria 4, he wrote, quote, "The sudden death of the first character. It will bring about a change and may place another character in the kingdom," end quote. Nostradamus believers have speculated the leader is Kim amid his dramatic weight loss and consistent rumors about his health. The North Korean despot had not been seen for some time since a huge missile exhibition in October, his longest absence for 7 years. He reappeared again on November 15th, but it only fueled long-running speculation about his health. The 3rd quatrain of Nostradamus' Centuria 3 is believed to forecast a huge earthquake in Japan. He wrote, quote, "Towards midi-extreme Sicily, in the depths of Asia, they will say earthquake," end quote. Indeed, if a quake did happen in the middle of the day, it could wreak terrible damage and death. On October 7th, an earthquake estimated at a magnitude of 5.9 at its epicenter rattled the greater Kanto region. While the damage was minimal, it was the strongest to hit Japan's capital since the earthquake and aftershocks of the tremor that devastated the Tohoku region on March 11th, 2011. One of Nostradamus' prophecies for the coming days directly concerns Paris, according to some interpretations. The French capital would be under siege, suggesting a war in Europe. The section referring to this reads, quote, "All around the great city will be soldiers lodged by fields and cities," end quote. Chaotic scenes already came to the streets of the French capital amid riots over COVID restrictions, and there is no knowing what else may be around the corner. And of course, Paris was infamously attacked in 2015 by ISIS terrorists who killed 130 people. It was the deadliest attack on France since World War II. Nostradamus wrote, quote, "Of blood and hunger, greater calamity. 7 times a priest to the marine beach, monarch of hunger, place taken, captivity." This has been interpreted to mean wars and armed conflicts in the world will probably only increase hunger. Therefore, it will increase migratory flows. And experts believe when Nostradamus refers to the beaches, he is predicting 7 times more migrants will arrive on the beaches of Europe than normal. Immigration continues to be a major political debate in the UK and Europe, with many deaths in the English Channel. And for some, Nostradamus's writing also predicted the fall of the European Union, which has been racked by trouble since the UK voted Brexit in 2016. It reads, quote, "Sacred temples prime Roman style will reject the Goths' foundations," end quote. Interpreters point to the Treaty of Rome, ratified in 1957, essentially founded the Union. According to Nostradamus, it is claimed Brexit was only the beginning, and the whole European Union was fated to collapse in the near future. It has already been suggested Poland could be the first country to follow the UK out of the bloc after a row between Warsaw and Brussels. An especially prominent prediction was that some sort of asteroid would hit the Earth. Quote, "Fire do I see that from the sky shall fall," end quote. The Earth did have a near miss with asteroid 2021 GW4, although it wasn't considered too much of a threat by NASA and didn't exactly fit the astrologer's dramatic prediction. However, NASA have been throwing spaceships into asteroids in order to predict how best to bounce them away from the Earth. Why would this be? Because it is predicted that there are rogue asteroids heading our way. Nostradamus also predicted the rise of artificial intelligence. He wrote, quote, "The moon in the full of night over the high mountain. The new sage with a lone brain sees it. By his disciples, invited to be immortal. Eyes to the south. Hands in bosoms. Bodies in the fire." End quote. Obviously, the new sage with a lone brain is believed to be a reference to artificial intelligence, and we end ominously with bodies on fire. Artificial intelligence becomes more advanced each year. This warning about immortal disciples takes on a very real meaning. Indeed, Stephen Hawking has warned that artificial intelligence could end the human race. Machines that can think pose a threat to our very existence, and, quote, the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race, end quote. In 2020, Elon Musk told the New York Times that AI would grow vastly smarter than humans and would overtake the human race by 2025, adding that things would get, quote, unstable or weird. Ben Nye, the director of learning sciences at the University of Southern California Institute for Creative Technology, said, quote, if the AI is explicitly designed to kill or destabilize nations, accidental or test releases of a weaponized viral AI could easily be one of the next significant Manhattan Project scenarios. We are already seeing smarter virus-based attacks by state-sponsored actors, which is most assuredly how this starts. Looking out into our galaxy, the French mystic cryptically refers to a, quote, light on Mars falling. These words could be explained as the planet appearing to move backward in the sky, say believers. Or it suggests that humanity could be on the verge of a major breakthrough when it comes to colonizing the red planet. Elon Musk has made no secret of his desire to send humans to Mars and has suggested humans will land there by 2029. So maybe the billionaire has something more up his sleeve. Among the predictions made by Nostradamus for the coming year is a new pope to end all popes. According to the soothsayer, the current pope will be the last true pope, and the pontiff who takes his place will create a scandal. Quote, in the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will be Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people. End quote. And what about the end of times? Nostradamus predicted a, quote, celestial fire on the royal edifice. The prediction has been interpreted as suggesting that from the ashes of civilization, a new world order will emerge. Others believe this could refer to the, quote, end of times, or the start of a new world order. Intriguingly, Nostradamus talks about the new alliance of two great powers coming together. In his writings, he says his new alignment will be between a strong man and a weak one, or even a male and a female leader. The alliance seems to work despite itself, but sadly, its good effects will not be long-lasting. Nostradamus wrote letters, and there is one particular letter he wrote to his newborn son called Caesar. In this letter, he wrote about future events and the end of times. He predicted that the world would go through a series of great floods. These floods would end in a great catastrophe for mankind. A huge comet storm would hit planet Earth. After this, there is nothing. It's almost as if he's telling us there will be no future for mankind. Never in the history of mankind has there been a time when this could possibly come true. Now is the time. Humanity has caused such utter calamity and destruction on our beautiful planet that we have in fact instigated our own death. We have caused the earth to warm through our poisonous behavior, and this is melting the icebergs of the world. The seas are rising, coastal regions are disappearing at alarming rates, and the poisoned oceans of the world are heading our way. Never in the history of mankind could we safely predict a storm of comets, because never in the history of mankind has there been the technology for humanity to launch intercontinental ballistic missiles at each other. To a man from the 16th century, such things would appear to be comets, great streaming strands of fire and smoke falling down to earth before our eyes and bringing the end of mankind as we know it. This is exactly what Nostradamus wrote to his child. Quote, "But my son, I tell you that I have seen it thus. There will be floods of such nature that no place on this world will not be affected, and for a long time everything will be beneath the surface of water, and everything will be destroyed, with the exception of the weather and space. After those floods, such a great amount of fire of glowing stones will fall from the sky that nothing will be able to escape this last destructive firestorm." End quote. The problem is that the dating is difficult. It may be that he indicated this would happen 7,000 years after his writing of the letter. But this goes against his other prediction dates for the end of the world. Again, the vagueness causes problems. The events of flood and glowing stones falling from the sky are not vague, and we now know what these could mean. There are, though, more clues about the end times when we return to his prophecies about the third Antichrist. We turn back to his specifics about the army employed by this evildoer. The army of the enemy of peace will march towards Europe. They will emerge from the south of Russia, and through Turkey they will invade Europe. This army will also have a naval counterpart that Nostradamus called the Libyan fleet. It will move into the Mediterranean, and there will be a massive naval war in the Adriatic. Malta, Sicily, Sardinia, and other islands will be destroyed. Again, never in the history of mankind has there been such firepower with the ability to wipe out islands until now. Throughout this conflict, it is believed that Russia will be against the West, although Nostradamus is not clear. He does state that the Russians will be friendly with the West eventually, and that their leader will be the one who will set things right. The reason for this is because Russia soon realizes that they need to ally themselves with the West in order to defeat the Easterners. These Easterners are in reality the people of China and various former Soviet nations. In addition to this, the Easterners will be allied with the Islamic nations of Asia and the Middle East. So it appears the West and Russia will be at war with the East in a clear divide of ideologies and religions. Again, looking at world events today, it is not a stretch of the imagination to realize that China and the Muslim world could easily find themselves at war with the mainly Christian materialistic West. There are already so many issues that could spark international conflict. How could Nostradamus have known any of this in the 16th century? He couldn't. It seems that his third Antichrist will bring the non-Christian nations against the armies of Christ, and he also states that the Christians will be faced with terrible persecution and tortures. This terrifying war will last for almost 28 years, and both sides will suffer horrendous casualties. Our cities will be struck by these large shining rocks that fall from the sky. In other words, ballistic missiles will strike New York and other major centers. As if this isn't enough, there will follow a great and dreadful pestilence that will wipe out 2/3 of the world's population. This could be nuclear radiation or the spread of disease as society breaks down. There are various dates all of this could happen. The next is 2024, and roughly every 2 years following that. As Nostradamus tells us, it all depends on the actions we take now. What we do know is that the predicted flood we spoke about earlier comes after the war with the Antichrist. Global warming will melt the ice, bring about widespread rainfall, and following this, more breakdown of society and spread of disease. In addition to all of this, it is thought that global warming and the melting of the ice caps could cause the planet to shift on its axis, causing tidal floods to worsen. Our position in the solar system would even alter and cause us to move even closer to the sun. In fact, the Earth is actually overdue for a polar shift, even without man-made global warming. There is absolutely no way a man from the 16th century could have known about any of this unless he had some way to see into the future. The future appears to be a terrifying prospect that must have caused Nostradamus to lose sleep. There is no wonder that he tried to tell us. But his message across the years is still very strong and true, that the future does not need to be this way, that we can make a difference and we can stop these things from happening. The question is, will we listen? Nostradamus' prophecies continue until the year 3797. So if we make it through potential asteroid crashes, famines, the plague, and a zombie apocalypse, humanity might survive an extra 1,500 years or so. Still, between now and the end of times, Nostradamus predicted a lot of terrible things. Wars, the coming of 3 antichrists, and many plagues and pestilences. Many of these will leave the world in worse shape than it was before them, but not necessarily end it. At some point, Nostradamus predicted the third Antichrist will, quote, rise over all the kings of the East, end quote, and trigger World War III. This won't be pretty and will last up to 3 decades, resulting in a lot of death and destruction. However, this won't be the end either. According to some, the true end is what Nostradamus called the final conflagration, a series of extinction-level events that might include supervolcanoes, quote, fire from the sky, end quote, and what some believe could refer to a massive solar flare. While he doesn't give a date for the end of the world, the fact that his predictions end at a specific time, the year 3797, could be a sign that he believes this is when the end will come. It seems, according to the prophecies, that our end days may be some kind of zombie apocalypse. Here's what he says, quote, few young people, half dead to give a start. Dead through spite, he will cause the others to shine, and in an exalted place some great evils to occur. Fathers and mothers dead of infinite sorrows, women in mourning, the pestilent she-monster, the great one to be no more, all the world to end, end quote. He hints heavily at the rise of a great evil disease that renders sufferers half dead. This pestilent she-monster of a plague will cause all the world to end, he wrote, and leave, quote, fathers and mothers dead of infinite sorrows. He continues, quote, after great trouble for humanity, a greater one is prepared. The great mover renews the ages. Rain, blood, milk, famine, steel, and plague. Is the heavens' fire seen, a long spark running? Nostradamus says a greater trouble is prepared for us all. And so, what is the truth? Could one man living hundreds of years ago really foresee future history? In our 21st century age of science, why do so many people still believe? A few years ago, we may have scoffed, but today, science is actually permitting things that were once left in the realms of science fiction and fantasy. Multiple universes, quantum physics, all in one micro moment. These and more are put forward by physicists and quantum theorists. Time travel itself may now be actually possible, or so we're told. Could Nostradamus have found some unique method into perceiving vague images of a future world? There have been a great many methods utilized by our ancestors for entering what we call altered states of consciousness. Different ways of seeing and understanding reality itself. From hypnosis to drug-induced trance states, all have been tested and tried for thousands of years. Nostradamus was himself a man of science who delved into the world of the occult, the hidden. He understood the use of various drugs and altering his own perception. Was he in that perfect quantum state that allowed him to bend time and reality? We may never know, but the predictions he released into the world are quite remarkable and unique in their accuracy. Perhaps we have some truly dark days to prepare for as best we can. From artificial intelligence, asteroids, global warming and earthquakes, to pestilence, disease and famine. And perhaps those in powerful positions will seize the day and head these things off at the pass by researching and utilizing the great work of the Michael de Nostradamus, who will be forever known as Nostradamus. Time will tell.